Hello, friends. I am going to apologize in advance for my appearance. I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, but we are working through it. I really enjoyed this episode. Like at the outset, it was really excited to. Oh my God, I didn't even do the intro. My bad. Hey y'all, we are here to review the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. As usual, I am unprepared. I don't know what season we're on. I don't know what episode we're on, but let's get to it. So yeah, I really enjoyed seeing them like go to Bermuda. Like it just felt good. It just felt like they deserved it after, all these seasons and they've never really gone out of the country and done anything super like I don't know, it felt like Housewives like it felt like it made sense. They get there and at first I'm trying to piece together like, okay, how's this episode gonna go? Because Meredith is in the airport and then she even gets on the bus or whatever the heck, and then she gets to the house and she's just sick. And I'm like, what is Meredith's tea? Like what's going on? What is this leading to? Because I'm kind of over this, and I'm like, please don't get on my nerve, Meredith. Like, come on now, please. But it did help that we had Whitney giving like the comedic relief, and she's like, we all took the same sleeping pill, but Meredith accidentally took two. So I'm like, ooh, I'm like, okay, wake it up. And then we get the whole thing of, we got the preview last week, so we knew it was coming. But Meredith, they were picking rooms. Meredith wasn't feeling well, so she's like, I'm not gonna go run and chase and get a room. So she gets a room without a bathtub. And it's like, it's always the girls that are like, I'm not gonna run and chase a room that don't like their room. So I'm like, come on now, Meredith. Like, please, we're trying here. But, she's upset about that. While Meredith is away in her room without the bathtub, pulling herself together, we get some split scenes, which I always enjoy. Lisa and Heather, which is an interesting thing, but obviously we've seen that coming, so it's fun to watch that happen. And then we have Whitney and Angie, which I guess that makes a little bit of sense. Like, I feel like we thought Angie was going to be the drama this season, but she's kind of just fell in the middle of it. Like, it is just what it is. She's a nice girl, in my opinion. So it's just kind of like Whitney's at the heat of the stuff, and Angie's just kind of having a good time. So it's like, sit for the conversation, Angie. Come on, let's chat. Both groups are talking about the whole fallout between Lisa and Whitney that happened at the event last week. Whitney feels like, and she said it verbatim, I thought that it was only going to come from Heather and be some weird tea there, but she's literally saying it in this moment. And she's just like, I feel like I was this positive person in Lisa's life and making her, be a better person, become a better person because I was around and we were friends. And like now she's not really like reciprocating that energy for me, I guess. And I'm just like, whoa. Like, what is Whitney talking about? And she also acknowledges that like after the blow up, she texted Lisa, but Lisa didn't respond. And that tells me, just through assumption, that I think Whitney knew that she was kind of tripping a little bit, so that's why she was the one to reach out to Lisa. But I feel like the way that Whitney does those things is not by acknowledging that she's tripping. She kind of like doubles down, and that's what she's gonna do here. Like, she's gonna make sure she gets that attention, but I don't know what she's looking for from Lisa besides the 17 I'm sorry's that Lisa gave her last week. Like, I'm not sure, and I don't think that Whitney knows what she's looking for either. Validation for her craziness, for sure. That's what it is. So I really respect the fact that Lisa just felt like she didn't want to talk to her because she's like, Whitney was tripping. And it really upset her to the point where, Lisa was crying and doing her thing last week. So yeah, girl, remove yourself from the situation. Like, girl, I don't want to talk after you already, like, were really weird towards me for no reason. That's Lisa's stance. And she's telling Heather that. And Heather is then kind of echoing the conversation that she had with Whitney, where Whitney was telling her what her issue was. Like, yeah, I feel like and she kind of, like, characterized it correctly. I was waiting for there to be a weirdness, but it really was kind of characterized verbatim. And she's just like, yeah, Whitney told me that she feels like she's a positive force in your life and she's proud of you because she feels like now that she's been around you, become a better person. And Lisa is like, girl, Whitney, like literally representative. Like, I feel like I love me some Lisa, but I feel like a lot of the girls love Lisa too, let's be honest. But I feel like a lot of girls try to like combat Lisa because they feel some type of way, like her personality is much. We've talked about this. So I feel like, when they don't like people, like they don't like Lisa, they do a lot to combat her and act like what she's saying isn't valid. I feel like in this moment where she's like, Whitney, make the math. I feel like the world united and held hands in support of that point. I must say, like, even though Heather didn't like mischaracterize it and get messy in that way, she was like definitely eating that up. And honestly, Heather is becoming like an MVP for me. Like, she's really kind of, I told y'all, she's really kind of eating up the mess, but kind of just sitting back and just like And I think it's great.
Unless Jesus Christ, like, comes walking across that water, no one's having influence on me.
I thought it was really sweet. I like to give my positive accolades to Monica when I can. So I thought it was really sweet that she brought Meredith's food. Meredith is talking, this is going to be a recurring thing. Meredith is talking point like 4 now about this bathtub thing with Monica, and she's giving a little context just to say, you know, she felt hurt because she feels like, you know, she's this sick lady that's walking around the house, and I guess she had expressed on the bus like, oh, I'm so cold, like I would love a bath. And then when they got to the house, nobody was considerate enough to be like, hey Meredith, do you want this room with the bath? There's some merit to that, okay? Like, but it's just so much dramatics around it that it's kind of clouding it. But let's just be fair and acknowledge that Meredith has made a valid point. It's just being, you know, given to us in a Meredith type of way. But what really took it further for me, where I was like, oh, this is deep, this started somewhere else, is when she was like, so now I have zero respect for the women. So I'm like, okay, like, she feels something deeper about this group as it pertains to what's going on this year. And I'm like, I want to hear more about that. But, you know, we wrap that up. She's back in bed, still trying to recover. And Monica runs out and she tells Heather and Lisa. And, you know, they talk about it. But at the end of the day, Lisa and Heather don't really care. And I understand because I don't really care either. We finally get to a point, though, where, like, you know, they kind of diagnose Meredith. She's just dehydrated, probably connected to something else. Fine, Valley, it didn't feel good. I get it. Being dehydrated sucks. So she gets an IV, and she's getting her makeup done, and my girl is rallying. She's ready to go.
I don't even really know what's going on, other than somehow I'm the only one who cares about a bathtub and I have a room with no bathtub. Above and beyond that, I don't really know what happened.
And to her point, when she gets in the car, she does definitely clock in for work. Like, I feel like the text from the producer when they were like, are you good? It's kind of like, hey, girl, we need you. We got stuff to do. The girls are kind of chilling around the house, and we got to get up out of here. You got to pull it together. And so she got on that bus, and she pulled it together. So she sits down, and she's like, I just have one question. Like, how many of you guys have bathtubs in your room? Like, yeah, we're still on that. And we got a commercial break. I thought that was iconic. We come back and pretty much everyone is acknowledging, like, yeah, girl, we got bathtubs in our room, like we sure do. And, you know, Meredith goes through her thing of explaining in very drawn out sentences and in her accent, you know, why she felt so passionate about it. And Lisa's not trying to hear it. Like, Lisa's kind of coming through for me like the friend where it's like, oh, girl, please, like, you know what I'm saying? We already did it with Whitney, but now it's like, Meredith, girl, come on. And I feel her because from a dramatic girly myself, like, I'm typically the one in the group that just gives much. That's why I relate to Lisa so much. When your friends start giving much, as a person that gives much and you see much and feel much, it's like, okay, girl, come on now, let's bring it down. So Meredith's ranting, and again, something I can relate to. Lisa's like, okay, well, girl, like, so who's going to give up their room with the bath? Like, what is the resolution here? Like, if we're gonna keep talking about it, like, what's the tea? What you guys got going on? And everybody's kind of like, oh, y'all still talking about that? And, you know, Meredith, she's like, I don't want anybody to give up my room. To Meredith's credit, again, giving Meredith her points. She's like, it's not about people giving up their room. She just wanted that consideration. And so, okay, Meredith, like, fine. But Angie's not having it now. Angie's in it. And she's like, well, girl, like, I thought that you were fine because even when we were doing, like, the tour of the rooms, when you could have, you know, gotten your bathtub, you were kikiing about Heather and saying, like, oh, well, Heather wanted to, like, lay on her back and, you know, do whatever with guys. And so they go through this whole semantics thing, and basically it all kind of did tie together. But basically what Meredith was doing was she was making reference to something negative that Angie said about her, right? When Angie was like, the only one that's opening up their legs and they're married is you. So in a roundabout way, 5 years later, Meredith was making reference to that. Fine. So Meredith gets into her thing of like, that's something nasty you said to me. And Angie says, well, no, you said really nasty things to me. And I feel like her sentences always come out in that same cadence. Like, well, no, actually, you've done this to me. And it's like, okay, Angie, like, you know, some conviction. We like that. And so Angie, you know, goes back to, you threatened my family at the end of the day, which Meredith did. Are we beating a dead horse? We absolutely are, but Meredith did. And Meredith still disagrees. And she's like, do you want me to get you a dictionary? And it's like, I wouldn't be mad at that. Like, actually, I wish that I actually had looked up the definition of threat. We're going to do that a little bit later, not right now. So we go through this whole winding journey of what we've been through before and what typically happened was with Meredith, where she's like, well, if I wanted to, I could. Like, I definitely could. Like, and it gets to it. She gets to her confessional. She's like, it's to a point where, like, if you keep being accused of something, then you might as well. I didn't think too much into that because I'm like, Meredith always kind of throws out those isms, like those, you know, Dr. Seuss riddles. But I guess it's going to mean something towards the end of the episode. But after they do all of this kicking and screaming, which typically happens in Angie arguments, I've noticed, they kick and scream a lot. But it feels like to me, Angie is a resolution type of girl. Her approach, I don't think is the best. And it can definitely come off a little bit abrasive. But I'm not one to police people's approach necessarily when it's coming from a good place. I feel like she definitely does want to work through it. It's just not great communication. And so, you know, they decide that they're gonna move forward. Like, fine, let's just move forward. And so I'm sure they won't, but you know, next scene. They do say, though, that they're going to have a one-on-one, but it was kind of passing, so I wonder if that is actually going to happen. But anyway, they get to, you know, they finally get to dinner, and somebody's like, is everybody good? I don't remember who asked. I like to note who brings us into the scene, so I wish I remembered, but I do not remember. But, you know, Meredith gets back into her thing where she communicates a little bit better and a little bit more clear this time, I think. And she's like, you know, what was the word she used? Did she say hurt? Her feelings were hurt by that. And so when she voices that, which I love when people can just kind of get through the thick of it and just get that part out. And it's all about consideration from your friends, right? And, you know, Lisa and Heather apologize and they move forward about the bathtub. So Whitney's got to get in there, and she's like, well, you know, in the spirit of expressing things that have hurt our feelings, you know, she addresses Lisa. She's like, Lisa, you know, what happened at the event really hurt me. But she characterized it as like, I told you that you hurt my feelings. And Lisa's like, no, girl. You know, Lisa is a facts girl. Lisa's like, no, girl, you said a lot of things. You were definitely saying a lot of things about me, but that's not what you said. And Lisa's fired up. Like, you can tell she's still feeling some type of way about this from a friend standpoint. Like, I feel that type of energy because like she really, like, Whitney really did come at Lisa crazy. Like, I understand, like I said, Lisa has definitely had her moments this season where she's come off self-centered and needed to like take some more accountability, but that was not the instance to be like, you're self-centered and all you think about is yourself, because it's like, girl, she hadn't even done anything to you. So that was crazy. So Lisa has every right to feel the way that she feels as it pertains to Whitney. She even acknowledges like she feels like Whitney is taking out her grief on Lisa, and that's accurate. We all decided that last episode, Lisa, but thank you for coming. But while they're getting into it, Whitney's like, no, girl, like the fact of the matter is like you only think about yourself, and I'm really just trying not to say that. And I'm like, Whitney, what do you mean you're trying not to say it? You said it like 13 times. You said it to her face at the event. Like, so what do you mean you're trying not to say it? It's already been stated. And Lisa's like, well, speaking of that, which I had already forgotten. Like, there was so much happening at this point. It was getting so much better. So I was like, the continuity wasn't happening for me. But Lisa's like, yeah, speaking of me being a bad person, like, it seems like you told Heather that because I'm hanging out with you, you're a positive influence and I'm becoming a better person. Like, what did I need to fix, girl? Like, what are you trying to say? What's the tea? So immediately, Whitney gets fired up at Heather and she's like, why are you meddling in our relationship? And Heather's like, what? And I'm kind of like, what? Because I'm like, she said exactly what you said. Like, I can understand if she said it and we never heard you say it, so it's a she say versus she say as it pertains to the perspective and the context and how it was said, but we heard you say it on this episode and Heather didn't say anything different. You know what I'm saying? So what's the problem? And Whitney's whole thing is she feels like Heather is trying to spin it to get Lisa against Whitney, like make it seem like a negative thing. But it is it's not technically a negative thing, but it's not a complimentary thing. Like, it's not a positive thing that you said about Lisa. So it would make sense regardless of how the message is delivered. And I don't think there's much wiggle room for how you deliver that message. But once Heather told Lisa, I think is a 90% chance that she would be offended by that. And Lisa goes into more detail about her issue with Whitney because she's like, it's not just that. And I do like that she kind of combined these because I didn't really take this as a big deal when it happened. I know the Twitter did, and I understood what, the Twitter was saying, but I didn't necessarily think about it too much. It didn't really touch me as much. But Lisa goes back and she's like, when I was at your house and, I had cursed around your kids and you were chastising me, like, I left your house really frustrated because I felt like, girl, like, what do you mean? And then at your event, you really went crazy on me and kind of doing the same thing, and I do agree that in those two moments, Lisa's behavior didn't warrant that response. Like, I kind of just feel like it just did feel like much from Whitney. It felt like much. And Lisa goes into this great detail of something that I truly understand, and I think it's very relatable, that when you have this big personality and you get around people, you're in this group, and this is her job, she's been doing it for years, you get around this group of different personalities, and not everybody can really take that. And so sometimes you really dial yourself back, and you have to be very calculated with how much you put out and how you move when it's not truly you, and it's not truly how you do things. So it's not technically a sacrifice though, because you understand that sometimes different perfect time and perfect place, right? Like, you can't really, and there's levels to things. Like, there's so many idioms I can just say about it, but it's just like you can't give the same energy to everybody, and not everybody can really take you for everything that you are. So Lisa's expressing some frustration with that because she's like, girl, I walk around on eggshells around you all the time. Like, I'm always checking in on you, and I'm not really that girl. I feel like is what Lisa was saying. Like, I'm not this like soft, like, oh my God, and considerate girl by nature. Like, to your point, I'm really not, but I try, and I'm doing the best that I can. We then get back to a little bit of a Whitney versus Heather, but I just feel like, I don't know. I think Heather was just so flabbergasted by, like, girl, what are you talking about? Like, how are you kind of going off on me? But Whitney's issue with Heather, I still cannot necessarily ascertain. But then we get back to Whitney and Lisa, and Whitney then flips it though. And she says, well, I'm just upset that you didn't respond, like, to my text, right? Like, I was hurt by that. And my whole thing is just like, don't ignore me. Like, just respond, even if you're going to tell me, like, go to hell or whatever. And she says, like, I think I'm upset because I'm just used to, she's like, for a while, I was used to Lisa being that person that I can lean on. But I'm like, well, hold on. I'm like, isn't that what you were just kind of accusing Lisa of? Passive aggressively? Like, it felt like you were kind of saying, like, you're always the person that Lisa has to lean on. And Lisa's always coming to you with her issues and being selfish and being self-centered. But now you're saying that you are expecting to lean on Lisa, and you've been able to do so. So it was just upsetting that you couldn't this time. I'm confused, babe. Like, what? Like, what are you saying? Is Lisa a great friend, or is she not? And I really like that Heather called that out. She's like, girl, in front of Lisa, which I appreciated. Like, girl, no Sade, Lisa, but when did Lisa become your confidant? Like, when did Lisa become the person that you go and you need a hug from at night? Like, what are you talking about? Whitney's just like, oh my God, you guys are just so jealous. Like, you just want to come in the middle of me and Lisa's friendship, and you're jealous, and you just don't want us to be friends. You want to make this a negative thing. But Heather's like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, you need to explain it to me. Like, where does this relationship even come from? It makes no sense. I'm not mad at that question. Like, at the outset, because I think it was like last season when Whitney and Lisa first became friends and Heather was being weird about it. I had a problem with that because I don't like the passive aggressive stuff, right? Like, Heather just kind of being weird about it, and it's kind of seeming like a weird, like, jealous schoolgirl energy. Whereas now, if you feel like you're calling BS, which I think we all are, because Whitney's speaking negatively about Lisa, but then she turns around and she's like, but Lisa's the one I cling to. And it's like, which one is it? Because now I'm seeing the flaws, right? So I don't mind Heather calling that out, because you do need to explain that to me. But Whitney says in a weird kind of way, like, well, if I explained it to you, like, it would trigger you and you would try to, like, ruin the relationship. And Heather starts going off like, girl, what? Like, but I do think that we've seen signs of that, like I said, like last season when Heather was being kind of passive aggressive. So I don't know if this is Whitney kind of gaslighting Heather and kind of just being weird, like she was being weird to Lisa last episode, or if she truly believes that, like, Heather is on this, like, mission to get in between she and Lisa. I don't see the context just from, like, a bird's eye view watching the episode and watching Heather's interactions, but maybe Whitney has experienced something that we are missing. I will say though, like, while Whitney was going on that tangent, like, you guys are jealous, Lisa was saying, like, oh no, that's not true, like, they're not jealous. So I do like Lisa's stance in it. and that she was trying to mediate and bring things down. And Whitney surmises to Heather, like, girl, you're just mad I'm not crawling up your butt anymore. Like, you're just upset that I'm not doing this with you anymore. And again, maybe Whitney has some experience that we don't have, but Heather seemed to me, contrary to last season, I'm going to keep saying, she seemed to me genuinely flabbergasted by this position. And ironically, as God will have it, it starts raining and storming and we get bad weather while Heather and Whitney are getting into it. So this is excellent television, okay? Like, at this point, I didn't need it to end. We keep getting on these hour and 15-minute long episodes for these other franchises, for these very dragged out, dry episodes. Like, I needed an extra 15 on this one. We get this final scene for a dynamic that I have truly been trying to like, understand more. So I'm glad we got some just, like, live description of it. And it's Meredith and Monica, and Meredith's just saying, like, you know, she's really clung to Monica a lot this season. So I'm understanding the dynamic a little bit more. Like I said earlier, like, why does she deeply feel like these ladies, you know, she doesn't have any respect for them? I think, and I kind of did say this at the beginning of the season, Meredith doesn't have an ally. But it's weird that it kind of fell into Monica, right? And I think that Meredith feels strongly about this ally based on the information that she shared with Monica. So, you know, first they talk about the bad thing and we rehash that. This is like the 10th time she's brought that up. We have that conversation. She still seems kind of upset about it, even though I thought we chopped that up, but whatever. Like I said, she gives the information about Monica being very supportive of her, which it does seem that Monica is being very supportive and attentive to her, so fine. But then the weirdness starts, right? So I was wondering this a couple episodes ago when Lisa and Meredith had their sit down, and Meredith said that she felt like Angie was manipulating the situation. I was wondering how. So she explained that, you know, she had been upset, and she felt like Angie was probing and prodding at her, so then she responded, and now Angie's being upset with the way that she reacted, right? The way that Meredith reacted is being picked apart. And also by Angie and Lisa, right? So that's a little bit more understanding, or it makes a little bit more sense to me, because I guess she's saying on the trip in Palm Springs, you know, like, Angie came uninvited, and Angie was poking and prodding at Meredith to know, like, girl, why don't you rock with me like that? Granted, Meredith, again, was being very dismissive, but at that same time, she said she was upset. Angie was probing and prodding at her, so she reacted. The reaction, not a great one, but, you know, her stance is it's being picked apart. But we already talked about this analysis. Her reaction did not fit what Angie was doing, so I still think Meredith is wrong. But I understand where she's coming from. And again, she calls this gaslighting and manipulation, so fine, that's Meredith's thing. She's running with it. So Monica kind of then gives us the tidbit that she and Meredith had a lunch or something like a couple weeks prior, and basically they went to this area where a Greek mafia used to own the area. Like, I guess Meredith had that fun fact while they were walking around, like TripAdvisor. And then shortly thereafter, that conversation, well, during that conversation, there was some, I guess that Meredith maybe had implied that Angie was a part of a mafia or may have been a part of one. I don't know how we segue into that, but that's kind of literally how Monica explained it. And then shortly thereafter, Meredith is calling Monica like, hey girl, there's this Instagram page that's DMing me with T about Sean, who is Angie's husband, and Angie. And she's like, have you seen it? Like, check your DM. Just like, kind of like she knew it was in there. Like, check your DM. I'm sure it's there. And, you know, sure enough, Monica checks her DM and they're there. And then Monica basically implies that from then on, she kept getting more and more messages. So now we're in the present moment and she's basically saying, well, girl, now that you bring up Angie, like really letting me know that you're kind of into it with Angie. That's so ironic because that page that you told me about, right, girl? They have really been hitting me up. Like, they've really been giving me the tea. And she's like, have you seen it? And Meredith kind of has this look in her face where it's just like, I can't believe she's bringing this up right now. And she's kind of like, well, no, I don't. And she puts her head down like Meredith does, and she kind of sips her drink. I feel like she always has a drink available for her to put her head down into when she's lying and deflecting. And she's like, no, girl, like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I don't know. I haven't seen any of that. But she's like, but what I do know is karma. Karma. It'll be karma. It's karma. And at this point, I'm like, Meredith is on some weird stuff. Meredith's on some weird stuff. And I never thought that Monica would give me such pertinent information. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen next. The preview looks super spicy, but this is interesting. Like, I think we only have like 3 episodes left, and we may need more. But I guess we'll see. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I'm happy that I'm feeling better. Hopefully I'm looking better soon, and I will see y'all in the next one.